I'm on the phone with Paul Hartnoll, who, along with his brother Phil, make up Orbital, one of the most seminal electronic groups of all time. Since electronic music is, I guess, in the big picture, still a relatively new genre, it's interesting that you and your brother now find yourselves in the position of being elder statesmen.
Oh yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I think it's hilarious. Do you know what I mean? Because the thing is, though, for every elder statesman, there's another elder statesman above you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I still feel the same about Cabaret Voltaire and Kraftwerk and New Order and people like that. And if anybody ever says, "Oh, you're the people who influenced us," and all that, to me, I just find it amusing. Do you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
get out of here. How can that be true? But you learn to sort of live with it, because you end up meeting these people on tour and that sort of thing, and they'll literally travel sort of half of the southern states of America and take 2 weeks off to come and follow you around. And it's like, and you think, well, fair play to you, you know. I never did that to Kraftwerk, but I wished I had a couple of times. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's sort of,
yeah.
You know, it's quite nice when people do that sort of thing. But you do, you know, that's, I don't know, you just have to accept it. And I suppose by the time you become that, you're older and wiser and can accept it.
There's a whole new generation of fans of this music who may not even be familiar with your past work. Let's talk about some of your, I guess to use the term, greatest hits. How did the tunes come about, and what are some of your memories of them? Let's start with Chime.
Chime came about, that's one of those nice sort of happy coincidence tracks where you sit down and it was a nice sunny summer's day, and I was just trying out a little experiment with my 4-track. I just thought, why do I always record on 4 tracks when it's got 6 inputs, and why do I always mix it down to another thing and lose quality? So let's just try and sort of bypass the middleman, and, you know, a technical experiment basically. And so I thought, well, I better knock up a tune to do it with then. And literally, that's how Chime came about. It was knocked up in a couple of hours one afternoon, just to sort of test out a theory, and it got to a point where it's like, okay, it's nearly time to go to the pub, that'll do. Let's just record this. And I recorded it, and stepped back a couple of days later and thought, actually, that's quite good. And then sort of ended up playing it to Jazzy M, who was the first person to put it out. He just went mad. I played it to him in his record shop, and he was sort of doing all his Friday afternoon selling to all the, you know, DJs that come in. And, you know, normally he wouldn't play one of our sort of demos at that time, and he was so jumping up and down about it, he took all the records off and said, "Oh, listen to this." So playing it, and there's all these people going, "Oh, yeah, I'll have one of them. Oh, yeah, I'll have one of them." And he's like, "You can't have it, it's a tape." And he said, "You have to get it here soon," and just went, you know, mad. And that was it, really. That sort of started the whole thing off.
Halcyon and On.
That came about on a hungover Sunday evening. Sort of sat around, you can tell, can't you? Sort of sat around with a load of mates around my house, just sort of noodling away, and I just thought, I'm going to do something nice and easy, you know, quite like, you know, like a dance music, easy listening record, if you like. Something nice, pleasant and easy and simple and not too frantic, and, you know. And Kirsty Hawkshaw was a friend of ours at the time, and she'd always said, "Oh, I'll come over and do some singing with you." But she'd never got over at that point, and I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to sample a bit of her from the Opus 3 record, and, you know, just make something nice and poppy. And then by about 2 in the morning, you know, like a few joints later, one of my friends was sat there and said, "Yeah, why don't you turn that voice around the other way and put it backwards?" So I turned it backwards, and it was like, whoa, hang on, that sounds good. And that was it, really. And it sort of spun out from there, and it just sort of developed in a bit more of a sort of, you know, sort of ambient, to coin a phrase, I suppose, just, you know, sort of way, really.
Talk about a track that I feel signaled a rather dramatic change in your sound, The Box.
That was a sort of exercising of all our sort of film and TV theme tunes, sort of adoration experiences, really. I mean, that, you know, coming from the Inside album, that's where we really sort of let our hair down and took all those sort of John Barry and Ennio Morricone sort of influences and threw them into the mix a little bit more. And The Box, really, you know, is a sort of, it's almost like a tribute to sort of, you know, these sort of British TV programs and things like The Professionals and The Sweeney and The Champions, and I suppose programs like The Persuaders, you know, the great John Barry theme tune, and, you know, everything that he did, really, all his sort of the Harry Palmer films and Get Carter and things like that, and all those great sort of theme tunes that we grew up with and loved. You know, like the hammered dulcimer sort of sound that John Barry really sort of coined with the Ipcris file and things like that. I just sort of just threw all of that in there and made basically the box sort of single to us as like a sort of fictitious sort of TV drama, if you like, or film, you know.
You two have always been big fans of film soundtracks and have loved scoring for them yourselves. What is it about that work that's so fulfilling?
I don't know. I've just always loved the big screen. I've always loved going to the cinema. It's where we're trying to go now. You know, it's the sort of thing we're doing. We're just actually in the middle of doing a film score now for a film called Octane.
Yeah, I read about
Madeline Stowe. And that's, it's just fantastic. It's like dream work. Do you know what I mean? We're finally doing it to picture rather than doing it to an imaginary picture.
Right.
And it's just really challenging. It's like a new challenge, you know, because on the one hand, in theory, we have all the ideas and the knowledge and, you know, a love of films and a love of music, but in practice, everything's new because we've not done it before, you know, the whole film thing, so it's great fun.
I'm on the phone with Paul Hartnoll, who, along with his brother Phil, make up Orbital, one of the most legendary groups in electronic music, and you guys are widely known for having the greatest live show in the genre. You two recently made a cameo in a huge blockbuster here in America, the Vin Diesel film Triple X. Tell us about that experience.
Oh, that was fantastic. Basically, the reason we ended up in it is because literally we were in LA doing our last gig on our last tour. We were sort of going around meeting a few of the music supervisors saying, hey, does anyone want Orbital to do a film score, basically? And we just happened to turn up in the right place at the right time, and someone said, oh, actually, we've got this guy who's looking for a European-sounding band for a scene in a film. It's set in Prague, and he wants to keep it European-sounding, you know. Do you look any good live? And it's like, well, right, okay, let's send someone down to the gig tonight. And so Rob Cohen, the director, sent two of his assistants down, and they went to him the next day and said, right, that's your band, that's who you need. And it just turned out like that, really. So we went away, wrote a track, you know, we spoke to him, got an idea and a feel for what the scene was, wrote a track that would sort of, on the one hand, just be a good, fresh dance track to the scene, but would also somehow convey something of the film as well. So we sort of went away and wrote the sort of Cold War Russian sort of rave tune, or that, you know, we tried to come up with something with that sort of feel. Again, that's sort of a little bit John Barry as well, you know, the nice luscious strings and things like that. And you know, it worked a treat, and we had to go over and perform it at the Bad Man's rave. So it was fantastic.
I'm a huge fan of your last studio album, last year's The All Together. Tell us about the track Tootled.
That came about through basically sampling an awful lot of Tool. You know, because we've done Lollapalooza with them, and that's the first time I'd ever heard them, and I just fell in love with them. I just loved their sound, and we were playing after them, so I used to go and stand at the mixing desk most nights as my warm-up to the performance and just get blasted by them. You know, it was when they were doing Enema, that's my favourite album. And so I just sort of, it's one of those things, I brought a couple of their albums back, you know, when we got back, and just sort of, some of those Friday afternoon tracks where you just sort of load up the sample, or loads of crazy samples that you just think, oh, how am I going to do something with that? And then, you know, you sort of get, it's like being in an office, you know, everyone goes a bit crazy on Friday afternoon, a bit silly, and I find the same thing happens in the studio. And so just sort of piled them all in there, made some sort of really boxy drum sounds and bass sounds, and just sort of started throwing it all together, and it just, again, it popped up in a very few hours, the bare essence of it.
Any other big U.S. rock bands that you admire or you guys fancy working with?
I think Tool have got to be sort of my favourite. I mean, we did a collaboration with Kirk Hammett from Metallica, and that was good fun. You know, finally, you know, did a version of Satan with one of the gods of heavy metal, you know, which sort of brought the track round to full circle. Quite like Queen to the Stone Age, actually.
Yeah, they're very tight band.
They're a good band, yeah.
We're talking with Paul from Orbital. One last question. Does a greatest hits package mean my best work is behind me, or this is what I've done so far?
Oh, for me, different people, I think it means different things. But for us, it means we've only just begun, really. That's the first part, you know what I mean? It's chapter one, but I think, isn't it, you know, a classic sort of book form is to have 3 parts, isn't it? So now we're, you know, I feel like we're sort of entering sort of like a film scoring stage or something, you know. You know, that's how it feels at the moment, because that's what we're doing, I suppose. But who knows? Yeah, but it's certainly. I feel invigorated. We've just left London Records. That's why there's this sort of greatest hits, because London Records, or like any record company, when you leave them, want to do that, and I was more than happy to do it, because I felt we had a body of work big enough behind us to do something like that, and it's very interesting putting that sort of thing together. But it's a full stop on that season, if you like, and forging forwards all the way. Really, it's really good to be 13 years down the line and without a record company, because you have a certain, like you say, elder statesman knowledge about what to do and what not to do. You're not young and naive anymore, and that's a great position to be in. Hello, my name's Paul Hartnoll, and I'm from Orbital, and you're listening to Planet X.